So I was in 5th grade when Hurricane Katrina hit, and my grandfather was actually in the house when the levees broke. And it was only because there was a very small window in the bathroom that wasn't boarded up that he was able to call out for help, and a boat came by and pulled him out. During that evacuation, my grandfather actually slipped and hit his head, and he was never quite the same after that, and eventually he passed away. You know, he's a casualty of climate change. When people are forced to flee their homes, when they are confronted by all of the extreme weather events that are going to intensify with the climate crisis, these things really have impacts on people and are really violent and are threatening communities and families. I grew up in a small town in Louisiana. The community I grew up in, it was very conservative, both politically and socially, but people really cared about each other really deeply. My family is Cajun. My mom makes the best gumbo. Yeah, it's something that we're really proud of in our heritage, being Cajun. Growing up, a lot of my self-worth was closely tied to my schoolwork, so much so that my grades kind of became my identity. Yeah, I ended up attending Chapman University in California, and I majored in peace studies. So one of my classes, I just sat down at a random open seat, and it happened to be next to this girl who just seemed really happy. We became friends. And one day I just asked her, "How are you so happy all the time?" And she told me, "Well, I'm Buddhist. I chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo. Maybe, you can come check it out with me sometime." And so that's when I started going to my SGI Campus Buddhist Club, and I found such a great community there. The friendships that I made were just really deep friendships. Nam-myoho-renge-kyo, Nam-myoho. When I started chanting, I remember I was very anxious because I was afraid I would do it wrong. And I kept asking people, what do I think about when I chant? Like, what am I supposed to be doing? And everyone was very kind, and they just said, think about whatever is on your heart. There's no right or wrong way to chant. Think about your dreams and your goals. And so, yeah, from that moment, I started chanting in my dorm room. I think being Catholic really instilled a lot of great values in me from a really early age. But Buddhism, it just felt right for me. It felt less about right and wrong and more about like an explanation for why things are. I finished my undergrad degree in Washington, D.C. After I graduated, I struggled to find a job. I just kept getting rejected, and I felt really powerless. I just felt really worthless. Like, so much of my identity had been tied up in success. I decided at that time to really get involved in my Buddhist practice and really put it to the test. I started chanting more regularly. I was caring for other young women and non-binary members in my community. And yeah, it was the first time that, I was really deepening my faith. And I got a call from my father that my mother had a health emergency and she was in the ICU back in New Orleans. And the doctor said that she might not make it and that I needed to fly home immediately to say goodbye. And as soon as I walked into her room, she opened her eyes for the first time. I would just sit with her, and she couldn't speak for a few days, and so I would just chant Nam-myoho-renge-kyo next to her bed. And eventually, when she could speak again, we started chanting together Nam-myoho-renge-kyo in her hospital room. And I was so determined that my mom was gonna break through and be totally healed. She ended up making a full recovery, and she left the hospital to kind of the amazement of all of the medical staff and my family. And shortly after leaving the hospital, my mom started practicing Buddhism herself in her community in New Orleans. So it was my last day in Louisiana. I had booked my ticket to go back to DC, and I got a call that I was being offered my dream job. It was the job out of all 30 applications that I had sent in. It's the one that I had really wanted the most. It was in the environmental movement, advocating for climate action. Now I'm really fortunate to manage an awesome team So I help people understand how climate change is impacting them in their daily lives. And I also work to urge our leaders to take action on climate and to put people over profits and really advocate for a sustainable future. Whenever I'm feeling really overwhelmed, thinking about the scope of the climate crisis, or even things in like my personal life, chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo really helps me, because a lot of times I'm very nervous or hesitant to use my voice, especially to like advocate for myself or advocate for what I think is right. And sometimes it's easier to stay silent. But chanting Nam-myoho-renge-kyo has really taught me the power of my voice and how much power I have over my life. So when I chant, it makes me feel really brave.